So what brings you in today?
Well, I think like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, my grandma passed away, and I just wasn't sad. I think when people die, I don't necessarily have an emotional reaction to it ever. I mean, like if I'm wasn't like super close to them, and I feel like if it was my grandma, I should have an emotional reaction. And it's not like I'm trying to suppress it, but it's literally just like it happened and it happened.
Mm.
I recognize it's a sad thing. I'm not gonna, deny the fact that she passed, but it's
Right.
just that happened.
Mm. Have you had any other close family members pass away in the past?
Last semester my grandfather passed away too. It was the same thing. I had a close friend. Her mom passed away, and same thing, man. And I don't know. It's just I have to try to put myself in that emotional space to be there for people, even though I don't feel it. And I recognize that it's a it's a terrible thing and it's a loss, but I literally have to force myself to be like, hey, this is a serious and like moment. You have to be there for people emotionally, and I have to somehow put it on.
So, what if you did experience any emotions? Like, what were they? And if you didn't, like, what is the emotion you're missing that you feel like?
The emotion I feel like I'm missing, man, it's I think I'm missing empathy at
Mm.
times, because I think it kind of goes into like seeing people's problems. Like I see people's problems, like man, that really is horrible. That sucks. But then I don't feel it, but I know that it sucks,
Mm.
and it's like empathy. Like I feel like I'm missing that a lot. You know.
So you feel like you're missing empathy. Have you always felt like you were missing empathy, or is this just something that recently came to your like notice?
Um, I think it's always been like this, but I've never really like took a deep dive and noticed it. Yeah, I remember in high school reading about like people like I don't know, just like different like I don't even know, but I just read a bunch of things about like people who like emotionally like detached and stuff like that. I was like, but I'm not all those things. You know what I'm saying? Like a sociopath, like I'm a normal person, but it's just that one thing I'm missing. And yeah.
Well, do you develop relationships that last long term?
Yeah.
Well, you can rest assured that sociopaths definitely do not develop long term relationships. They can't feel anything. But I will say this: why does it like? What is your deepest like worry about the fact that you don't feel empathy? If you don't.
I guess not being there for people.
Mm.
I think for me personally, like I can process it. I can, what I'm saying, it's okay. But then for other people, that's when I'm like most conscious about it. It's just like in this fact, like I don't want someone to look at me and say, "Hey, you don't care. Like I'm hurt right now, and you don't feel this." And then they don't want to talk to me about their problem, and I would love to be a help, and not being there for them is like, man, that kind of sucks.
Mm.
You
So you like to be there for people. So when you're there for them, do you feel like you struggle like to be present with them and to like share that like sadness with them, empathy? Like do you feel like it's a lot of work to be there for people?
Yeah, I think at times it is a lot of work because it's like I'm not feel like I feel like if I felt it, it would be more natural. It'd be like, oh man, like it's gonna be like I feel what you're feeling right now, but like I have to really think about what I'm gonna say in that moment. In the sense of just like, okay, person is hurting. This is the scenario, and what do they need in this moment? And most of the time, I just figure like, man, I can listen to them, I can be there for them, but I don't know how to like express that to the way that they feel like it's real. Like I'm not just there because I have to be there, but like someone who wants to be there and willing to be there.
So do you feel like you've been like able to be there for your parents, or you feel like do you feel like you're struggling with that?
I feel like I've done an okay job. You know what I'm saying? I wish there would be more. I wish I would like shed tears like they do. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like really like be there to weep with them,
Mm.
but it it's just not there. And people probably don't see me as like a weird person for not doing that. They're like they don't ever think that, but I think it's like really internal for myself, and like the way I just perceive myself is just like not being there emotionally. You know.
So, is this like lack of empathy only in like major situations where somebody's passed away, or is this like in a lot of situations? Like if you were to just like get in a fight with somebody and you're really emotional about it, like, or somebody hurt your feelings like really deeply, like they betrayed you or something. If any of these types of things have happened, do you think you would shed tears, or are you still one of those people who drifts away from feeling that emotion?
Um, I think, which is kind of interesting, was like when it comes to like fighting or getting upset at people, I drift away from those feelings because like someone could do something to me and I just not get upset necessarily like in the sense of just like, oh man, I hate this person, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just like wow, what they did was bad, and I recognize that. I'm like, that's not okay, but I don't feel it.
Mm.
So it's like the feeling part that I'm like struggling with constantly over and over again. It has been mainly with deaths because like I realized that because like when people die, it's like a big thing, and it's just like that's when it becomes more noticeable to me. I'm like, oh, I should probably be feeling a certain way right now, and I'm not.
So you said death is a big thing. Like
Hmm.
by that, what do you mean? Like in the grand scheme of things, like what is it to you?
I think in life it's just like there's creation of life, which is with kids, but then there's also a loss of life, which is people. You know what I'm saying? Older people normally, and um, it's normally really sad. Anytime I see in movies or on shows, it's like yeah, okay, people are sad. You can visually see that, and it's just like I feel like I'm abnormal for not being like that
Hmm.
visually.
But you do still feel like concern about the fact that you don't feel that emotion. So was there anything like in your childhood you think that like that where your parents were like you didn't really like experience emotion that extremely, or is it just sadness?
Um, I think just sadness, to be honest. Um, Nothing really traumatic ever happened in my childhood, which is pretty interesting. I think I'm fortunate for that. But I don't know. I haven't experienced anything.
So you're an emotional person. Would I be correct in saying that? Like on other levels?
So, yeah. If if it, I think if it's directly affecting me, like me as a person, I'll be emotional. But if it's affecting somebody else, it's like might not be there.
So do you want to feel empathy, or do you feel like you've coped well in the past years, like whenever you feel like you need to feel empathy but you're just not feeling it?
Um, I definitely would like to feel empathy, but I think over time you learn how to cope with it in the
Mm.
sense of just like, okay, like this happened to somebody, be there for them in this sense, either just listen to them, just be there, cook them a meal or something. But I think it's one of those things to always crave to want that feeling. It's like somebody being in love. It's just like, okay, you can buy your wife flowers, you can do this, but like if you don't have that feeling, it's like you would still long to have that feeling.
Mm. That's interesting. So let me see if I can phrase this. Do you think it's more of like a heart matter, or do you think it's more of a brain like situation for you? Like, do you think it's like I'm so in my head that I just don't feel it, or it's just like I just don't feel this in my heart?
Hmm. I think it's more of a just like, I want to say it's a heart issue, but and I think it very well could be. No, I think it's more of a heart issue. I can make the conscious choice to have like to show empathy to express it, but to feel it is kind of like the hard part. Um, there are times in my life, you know, what I'm saying that I felt empathy. Like one time, my best friend's brother died, and I was just like, bro, I was broken over that, you know. Um, but in other instances, very commonly it's not like that. And I'm a Christian, and I'm just like, uh, a lot of the principles and values in the Bible that Jesus tells us as Christians is just like to have empathy for one another, to love one another, and it's like, man, like I want to do that, I want to feel that, I want to express that to people, but it gets hard because I don't feel it. It's a lot easier to do it if you feel it.
Yeah. So you think you struggle with loving people well in that sense because you can't get on their level when it comes to like being empathetic for them.
Yeah.
So what was the difference in the situation with your best friend? Do you feel like there was a difference versus your grandmother?
I think what happened was when he first told me, I didn't feel anything. It's the exact same feeling. I didn't feel anything, but then when I was actually at the celebration of life ceremony, I was just like broken, seeing the images, what I'm saying, because I was like, I knew this person, I was like, dang, like, and they're not here, and that realization really hit me, and I was like, huh, and I was really emotional, but initially it was just nothing.
So for your grandmother, are they gonna have like a celebration of life kind of thing or a funeral?
I'm not sure what they're doing right now because they're trying to bury her in Nigeria, but she's in Florida right now. I would hope that they would have a, Zoom funeral or something.
Yeah.
Because COVID nowadays.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But.
Do you think if you were able to like see the ceremony and see the life she lived, do you think you would feel that empathy, or do you think it would hit you this time, or do you feel like you've progressed to a place where you just don't feel it?
I'm not sure because I think I've kind of come to terms with it. I never really hung out with my grandma a lot as a kid. So I might play into a little bit of just like never really being around my grandma because she lived in New Jersey at the time and I lived in Texas. I only saw her like a handful of times. So seeing photos, I'd be like, well, this is the person who I'm related to, and she was a big part of the reason why I am where I am today. And I'm thankful for her. That's I don't know.
So did you grow up in a Christian household?
Yeah.
Okay. So what age would you say that you came to like know the Lord, roughly? I know that's hard to place sometimes.
I grew up, going to church my whole entire life. My dad was a Christian and my mom was a Muslim, and he converted her before I was born. So I just grew up in church all the time, serving. But I would say that I had a true come to Jesus moment when I went to camp my summer of my freshman year in college.
Okay.
And I broke down and I started to follow the Lord like never before because I heard the gospel of Jesus Christ in a new light. And hearing the story of Jesus and what he did and how he lived his life out for us, and then realizing, oh, Jesus came to save us from our sins. God sent his only son, and it was just like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to give my life to this person because he loves the way he loved, the way that he lived his life, the way that he served every single person. On every level, and I understand, like, man, God would send his son for me. Yeah, it makes sense because I'm sinful and I'm bad. You know what I'm saying? Even at my best, I'm not
So do you think this, like, do you struggle with the empathy and label it as a sin problem? Or do you just think it's like one of those personal struggles?
Um, I wouldn't label it necessarily totally as a sin problem. It could be if it has to do with, me being selfful. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? If it's like, oh, if it doesn't affect me, then
It
not
doesn't
my
matter,
problem.
right?
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Then that could be a sin issue. But I don't know. I haven't really dove in so deep into that yet. I
Mm.
don't think it is. You know what I'm saying? Just looking at it, I'm just like, no. I want to be there for people, and I desire to be there for people. So I think it's more of like a self struggle.
I mean, and to give you like a little reprieve, like fall of man, like
Hmm.
in Christianity, like we were born into sin, so like, there's going to be struggles like
Hmm.
this, like
Yeah.
empathy, struggling with that, like it's okay.
Hmm.
But like I can see that you're uncomfortable with it. So, like um, if Jesus says to like love people well, like do you think like your lack of empathy has like made it where if Jesus said, oh, they're going to heaven, like in death situations, where you're like, well, I don't really feel like super empathetic because I know where they went, or I think I know where they went,
Hmm.
or I just have peace and know that they're okay because
Hmm.
they are not in the world anymore. Do you think it also may come from that?
Um, I don't know. I don't think it necessarily comes from that because when people die for me, I'm just like, man, like it's either that they were saved or they weren't because
Mm,
the Lord picks and chooses,
right.
and the Lord does what He does, and it's rest assured that like if they were Christians, they would be saved, and you can never be 100% sure if somebody's Christian or not, but I like to hope that like man, God did the best,
Right.
you know, chased them down as much as He
Mhm.
chased me down, and gave them the same opportunity to come to Him, to come to know Him. So um, I don't necessarily like um, I don't know, go crazy over that one aspect,
Mhm.
just because I just believe that God, would have spoken to them some kind of
Right.
way.
So, is there anything you want to accomplish here with this empathy issue, or are you just looking to flesh it out and try to figure out, like, kind of where you're at in it?
Uh, I just wanted to know where I'm at in it, kind of like just explore it and just like
Mm.
talk about it really, because
Okay.
I don't think there's ever like necessarily like an answer for it.
Right. Yeah.
But I think you can come closer to an answer just by talking about it.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah, 100%. Um, but I mean, I think it's good that you don't see it as like a sin problem, because we can be really hard on ourselves in that aspect.
Hmm.
Um, do you think that it has like negatively affected any of your personal relationships or broke any relationships?
Um, I I don't think it's negative to. I don't think it's like it's effective in any of my relationships. I think it might have even like strengthened them
Mm.
in the sense of just like I desire so much to have empathy that I have to like try so hard to be
Uh,
there for them. So then it's like man, like that desire in me to want to have empathy makes me express it even more.
right. So your desire to like actually feel it makes you pursue them harder and
Hmm.
like causes you to outwardly express it even though you struggle to inwardly feel it.
Yeah.
Mm, that's cool. That's really cool. That's a good growth. Like that's a good noticing of like that growth in your life and how you like one day recognize it and you were like, I don't experience this, and you're like, well then I got to show it.
Hmm.
So that's actually really awesome. Um, well, I think that's all the time we have for today. But thank you for meeting with me.
Thank you so much.